All right, thank you for tuning in to another Sprint retrospective. My name's Torlando. I'm the CEO of Craftsman Painter and the collective, right? Um, I'm glad to be here. I'm glad that you're watching this. If you have not subscribed to the channel, go ahead and begin. Just click subscribe. If you are a Spanish speaker, there are Spanish subtitles available. You just have to click on the little icon below to pull up the subtitles and then click translate to Spanish. Um, this is going to be a little bit longer of a lecture. We're going to talk about field marketing, and my pace is going to be a little bit more chill, more relaxed, more loose. So I recommend if you're watching this to put it on while you're on the job site. Maybe you're working out. You can sit down and watch it and take notes if you like to. It's totally up to you, but today we're going to be talking about field marketing. And the reason for the topic comes from a YouTube subscriber question. And this was a young man who has a summer internship with a painting company, and he is being employed to go door to door. And so he asked for a little advice if you're starting from new. And so the content of what I'll be talking about is regarding the position of a field marketer. And this is a topic that I feel pretty comfortable in talking about. It's not that I have a ton of experience, doing door-to-door sales in like pest control or solar systems and things like that. I've certainly had a lot of friends over the years who have done it and have tried to get me to do it. I did door-to-door knocking as a missionary for 2 years. That was enough for me. But what I've found as I do it in my own painting company, that people are actually a lot happier to see me when I'm representing a paint company rather than when I'm representing a whole religion, as it turns out. Um, so I think as a young person getting into it, or even if you are a seasoned business owner and you're trying to figure out how to how to get leads, how to find new business. I think door to door is a good tool to have in your kit, but I don't think that it's the only thing that you should be focused on as a field marketer. From if we're going to start at if we're going to begin at the end of this conversation, the short story here is that this is all about list building. It's really what it's all about. We're not going to take the approach in this case of being a hard nose, like I'm going to get that sale right now, and the reason is because what we don't want to do is we don't want to sour our brand, and I personally believe that short term, yeah, we got the sale today. I think those tags can kind of sour the brand, and they can also burn people out. And so if you want to have a little bit more long-term success, you have to start thinking a little bit more long-term and playing the long game. And so that's really what we're going to be talking about, is how to overcome some of the hurdles of not going with too hard of a strategy, but making it a little bit more enjoyable, a little bit more helpful, and a little bit more brand positive. That's not to say that we're not going to set goals and have tenacity and be fearless and go out there and get it. It's not to say that we're going to be passive in this effort, but we're not going to be those summer sales bros. We're just not going to do that. So let's talk a little bit about the dark side of being a field marketer. For one, there's a tremendous amount of rejection, and you're just going to have to get used to that. You know, you're going to be nervous going up to that first door and you're like, shoot, do I have the script right? Do I know what I'm going to say? Do I, you know, how are they going to treat me? How are they going to react? You know, you're going to get rejected. You're going to have people who say no. You're going to have people who say, why are you on my property? You're not allowed to be here. You know, you're going to hear a lot of that. And, you know, in my own experience, I've had people threaten me. In the experience of others, I have a guy on my team who ended up doing pest control one summer and for about a week and got a gun pulled on him, and he came back down and said, I'm ready to paint again. And so, you know, there is some rejection involved. There is failure involved. You're going to fail a lot, and you have to get used to the idea that failure is you know, it's an opportunity to learn, and it's, you know, it's an opportunity to see it's an opportunity to see what doesn't work about 1,000 times, right? So eventually you figure out what kind of does work. The hours can be long, that's for sure. It can be hot, it can be cold, it can be raining. You know, you have to be out there, and you can get mixed results. You know, you're probably not going to get consistent daily results every single day. You know, if you're being given a commission, you know, it's that money's going to be up and down. It's going to come in, and you're going to think you're rich, and then you're going to have a dry spout, and you're going to be like, I don't know what I'm doing, right? So I think the first thing that you have to figure out is if this is how you really want to spend a portion of your life. You know, it's not something that you're probably going to do your whole life. You know, it's a little bit of a young man's game, but some people do it for a long time because they make a lot of money doing it. And there are forums online, Facebook groups of people who are making a tremendous amount of money, only working for half the year, and they're doing door to door. They're doing door to door sales, but door to door isn't everything that we'll talk about either. So there's you know, other activities that you can do, time-based activities that you can do as a field marketer that I think are very much worthwhile. So I think to be successful as a door-to-door marketer, again, no matter what age you're at, but especially if you're a young person, I think the hardest thing that you're going to have to figure out is, um, you know, essentially proving a utility or a purpose for you being there. And the best way that you can prove that is by being very smart about some marketing basics. And you know, we should probably start with segmentation, targeting, and positioning. So I'll write these, you know, on the board here. So is that in view? Perfect. Segmentation. We've got targeting and positioning. So if you've taken a you know, marketing class in college, or if you've, you know, been in business for a long time, you might think that this basic of a conversation is kind of an interesting place to start as a field marketer, but it's really actually very important, because if you are not crystal clear on the biggest opportunity in each of these areas, then you're gonna be wasting a lot of time. And field marketing is a very time intensive activity, you know, position. You're not relying on ad buying. You know, you're not relying on inbound marketing. You're going out, you're spending time, you're taking your time, you're pounding the pavement, you're picking up the phone, you're knocking on doors, you're walking into businesses. Like, you're taking your time. And if you don't have these things in order, if they're not right, then you're just going to be wasting that time. So let's talk a little bit about segmentation and what that is in the context of painting specifically. So segmentation, we have just a few segments that everybody kind of knows, and you know what your company does. One of the segments is commercial. One of them is residential. You can do commercial new construction, you can do commercial repaint. You can do residential construction or residential new construction. You can do residential repaint. So if we just put our segment in one of these little you know quad graphs here, you have new and repaint, and then you have commercial and residential. And that's largely how we segment our industry. Now there are other companies that do industrial, and there are companies that do multifamily, and that kind of stuff. There are companies that do strictly epoxy, and all those kind of things. But most people watching this are probably going to find themselves in one of these buckets. Either they're going to do the bulk of their work is going to be residential repaint, and maybe they might have a smaller amount of work in residential new, and maybe a really tiny amount of work in commercial repaint, and then maybe they just avoid commercial new construction altogether, right? And that's actually pretty common, right? That's a pretty common mix. What I also see are people who maybe they focus entirely on commercial repaint, and they have a very small amount of residential repaint, right? And some people will say, no, we don't do any new construction. And then there are others that all they do is new construction, right? And so the reason that this is important, because each of these potential customers, is a different human being altogether, right? The person who does, the person that you try to target, so then once we get into targeting, this is why the segmentation matters, because this is where you start spending your time. So if you're doing commercial repaint, then the person that you're going after are going to be property managers, facility managers, business owners, that kind of thing, commercial realtors, that kind of thing. Whereas if you are residential repaint, well, now you're targeting homeowners directly, or you're targeting residential realtors or interior designers or other trades. There's the targeting on that is just so different. Where you find these people, completely different. Commercial new construction and residential new construction, well, with that, you're going to want to be targeting the builder specifically, right? You want to be able to find the right builders. And there are pros and cons, right? So in new construction, both residential and commercial, maybe those margins, the profit margins are going to be a little tighter. Maybe on some of that custom high-end stuff, you have better margins, but a lot of times the margins are going to be tighter. But once you get in with a builder, then you're going to be able to keep a crew busy pretty much all year, right? And that's why a lot of people like new construction, because once they have those relationships, then it's just about fostering those relationships. Once you're in, and it takes time to get in, but once you are in, then you've got your work lined up. Whereas with residential repaint and commercial repaint, that is you're just constantly trying to find new work, right? And so you have to ask yourself, what do you want to do with your time? If you're going to be painting something, and process wise, each of them is a little different, but by and large, you're brushing, rolling, and spraying. And so, with little process changes, you can do each one of these. And with a lot of attention on operations and efficiency, you could be profitable in any one of these. Even in new construction, residential tract homes, you can be profitable. You just have to have a manufacturing process. You have to have the people that are going to come in, they're going to spray out the trim, and they're going to leave and go to the next house and spray out the trim, and then the wall crew is going to come in behind them. Like, you have to be really dialed in. So you have to figure out like what is it that you really want to be doing, you know, and if you're coming in like as a field marketer and you're working for a company, they're going to know that, right? They're going to know exactly what they want to you know, go into, and the thing is that they might, you know, they might actually want you to develop a new segment. You know, maybe they do really well in residential repaint, but they want to build out commercial, and so that's what they need you to do, or vice versa. But what I would say is that make sure that when you are segmenting this and that you are coming in as a field marketer, that you are selecting one, okay? Just focus on one, especially with one person. If you have a person who has to focus on the many, um, you just don't get as far. Okay, I'll just be real. You're just not going to get as far if they're, you know, focusing all over the place. So pick one. That doesn't mean that your whole company has to be focused on one, but if you're an individual or if you're hiring an individual, make sure that they're focused on one. So then comes the targeting, and so the targeting, uh, you know, I think if you were to like Google search targeting and like how to target your customers, they'd probably point you to demographics and firmographics. A demographic is like gender, age, you know, maybe income. Firmographic is, you know, size of company, how many employees, you know, that kind of thing. If you were to pull up a blog, that's probably what it'd tell you. Is like, you know, think about your demographics. Okay, so my demographic is residential repaint, so I'm selling to women in their 40s, right? Well, I think there's kind of a problem with that type of targeting based on demographics, in that, you know, for one, uh, men outside of their 40s also paint. You know, women outside of their 40s also paint. You know, sometimes those men and women are married, sometimes they're not. Sometimes women and women are married, and sometimes men and men are married, and sometimes they have kids, and sometimes they don't. And all of a sudden, it just gets really muddled. And the fact of the matter is like that doesn't actually tell you anything about their buying habits. You know, being a man or being a woman doesn't tell me whether you're going to buy paint. It just doesn't. Um, what does tell me whether or not you're going to buy paint is the neighborhood that you live in. Um, you know, the zip code. Generally speaking, the zip code. Some zip codes are pretty broad, but you know, if you're in a bigger city, your zip code's going to be pretty telling. Specific neighborhoods, also events. Like you want to you want to figure out, you know, you want to ask yourself the question of like why is this person painting? You know, what is this paint for? I think that's a really good question. Like, what is this paint for? And if I said, okay, what is this wall paint for? Well, obviously it's for walls. Well, why does this wall need paint? Well, the wall needs paint maybe because it's you know, a color that the person doesn't like. Or maybe the wall needs paint because it has a bunch of holes in it or a bunch of dings and marks. Okay. And then you have to ask, well, you know, why is the color bad? Or why don't they want the dings of their marks? Well, they don't want the dings of the marks because they want their house to, you know, look clean. And it's like, well, why do they want their house to look clean? Well, they want to feel good about the house that they live in. They want to protect their home. They want to protect their asset. Now we're starting to understand why people need paint, right? You know, well, they don't like the color. Well, they like design. They like good design. They want it to feel like themselves, right? Okay, so now what that means is that, okay, we have to find the neighborhoods that have the most amount of houses that people care about the way that their house looks. Okay, and so you want to look for the neighborhoods where there are signs that people take care of their houses. People take care of their houses when, you know, if everybody has nice lawns. If everybody has nice lawns and they have, you know, lawn care people doing the work for them, chances are that they might need paint, right? Or at least they would hire paint. And And so, what is the occasion for painting? Like, why are they doing it? Well, a lot of people, like I said, they paint because the walls are in rough shape, or they paint because they don't like the color. Well, a lot of times they don't like the color because they just moved into a house where the color was the color that somebody else picked, and they don't like it, right? So, what I'm doing is I'm targeting people who are moving. And specifically within a target zip code. Okay. So people who are moving, whether they're moving in or moving out, that's another question, right? Moving in or moving out. Well, if they're moving out, there are pros and cons here. The pro is that they need paint, period. They just need paint. I was at a house just today, and the lady said, we are getting ready to sell our house. We're probably going to live here for a year. I tried to paint my cabinets myself. I didn't get very far. I can't sell my house if my cabinets look like this, and so I have to paint, right? And that word right there, have to. Like, what do people have to do? And that's the question, right? Like, if they have to do this, then the likelihood of you getting a sale goes up. But we have a challenge here, because the thing is that this is a project that is going to be done in her mind for somebody else, and it's not for her. So she doesn't really want to spend a ton of money on it, right? These cabinets, she's probably going to have to. If she wants them to be done right and she wants to be able to actually sell her house, she's probably going to have to sell it. But in this case, it's a have to, and that makes it kind of more of a utility. Right? So if it's a have to, then it's a utility. And that's true of people who are moving out of their house. They might have to paint their house, and so they view it as a utility. And if something's viewed as a utility, then the things that are most important to them are going to be timing and urgency. And so if you're targeting somebody who is moving out and they view this as a utility, then you're going to have to position yourself as a company who can get the job done, quickly, and who can get the job done for budget. Now, that might mean that you have to adapt your processes and adapt the products that you use to make sure that you can get your cost down, right? But if there's enough urgency, then maybe price doesn't end up being a factor. So, yeah, utility is about price and timing. And if you can't accommodate a competitive price and you can't get to things quickly, then maybe the people who are moving out, maybe they're not exactly your customer. Maybe they're not exactly your target. No matter what, you're going to get those people. That's the thing. But maybe that's not your ideal, right? So maybe a better idea is to get people who are moving in, right? People who are moving in, well, they are going to they want to put their personality on it. And when you think about all the reasons why people move, sometimes people are moving because they've changed jobs. And now they're moving to a new town and into a new place, into new jobs. Everything's upside down. Their whole life is changing. And all they really want is to improve their lives. That's usually why people move. They're trying to improve their lives. Sometimes people move because they have to and something bad is happening. But, let's be a little optimistic here. And assume that if somebody's calling you for painting, that they're moving because they got a big raise, or they got a big promotion, or they made a jump to a new job, and it's going to give them a lot of extra money, and so now they can improve their lives. Well, now they can customize their house, And what's happening here is instead of a have to, it's turning into a want to. I want to paint my house because when I do, it'll become the home of my dreams, right? And so instead of being, it was a have to, now it's a want to, which means instead of being a utility, now it's actually an aspiration. Okay, and as an aspiration, all of a sudden price and timing becomes a little less important. Some of these people who are moving in, they do want you to get it done like before they move in, but that's an easy objection to overcome. That doesn't take much to overcome that objection. The pricing and timing become a little less important when we're talking about aspiration. What becomes more important when we're talking aspiration is the brand. That's what becomes more important, right? Think about like handbags, for example, right? A utility handbag would be, just a bag that you pick up, purse that you might pick up at Target or Walmart, like you need to put stuff in your purse as as purse wearers do, and hopefully it's a little bit stylish, but really what we're looking for does it come at a good price, and I need it today, so I'm going to go shop local and pick it up today, right? That's a price and timing thing. We don't really care so much about the brand. But then if I'm like, okay, I want a Kate Spade or a Coach bag or a Louis Vuitton bag, right? All of a sudden, the price of it and the timing don't really matter, right? Because I'm gonna be spending a lot of money on that bag, and I'm gonna have to save up for that bag. But I've been waiting for a year to be able to afford this bag. And so what matters here is the brand. And because the brand matters, the brand is what helps me achieve my aspirational identity. If I believe that I'm a person who wears a Louis Vuitton bag, then if I buy it, then I'll become that, right? Well, this does apply to painting, right? This very much does apply to painting, because if I'm moving into this upscale neighborhood and everybody around me keeps their lawns mowed, then I'm gonna need to mow my lawn. And if I'm mowing my lawn and everybody else around me is using the company that does all the edging and the blowing and all the good stuff, and they show up with really nice trucks and things like that, and I'm the one that has the neighborhood kid doing it. Well, my lawn's not going to be done as professionally as everybody else. And if my lawn isn't done as professionally as everybody else, then I don't fit in here. And if I don't fit in, then people are going to look at me funny. I'm going to get complaints from the HOA, and I'm not going to make any friends. And if I don't have any friends, then I'm not going to feel belonging. And then I just moved my family all across this country, and now all these parents won't even look at me. They won't even let me play. They won't let my kids play with their kids, and so all of it was for nothing, because my stupid lawn and who I chose to mow it, right? Okay, these are things that this is real stuff, right? So the question is like, okay, when your van shows up in their driveway to paint their house, what message is that sending to their neighbors? Is it sending a message that, oh, do you see that the neighbors are using Craftsman Painter? Good. I'm glad to see they're taking care of their house, right? That's that's what they're gonna say, and then they're gonna get the invite to the neighborhood barbecue, and that's what they want, right? So so that's this is how this kind of segmentation and targeting and positioning starts to work. So and all we're talking about are the movers, right? And so now I have to figure out, okay, if I'm targeting movers, and I know that movers, um, that are moving out, they're more interested in utility and price and timing. And I know that the people who are moving in are going to be more, interested in their own aspirational identity and brand. Now I have to decide, okay, who am I here? And do I have the brand that reflects that? Do I have the positioning that reflects that? Am I talking to the right people for this, right? And with movers in particular, the people who know the movers, they're the realtors, right? And the realtors love giving referrals. Do you know why the realtors love giving referrals? They love giving referrals because it makes them useful to their customer. It helps them become a resource. And we're going to talk about that resource element in a minute. Now, with realtors, realtors are largely divided into like there's kind of two types, especially in residential. Commercial, it's a different field, and I'm not going to talk about commercial. I'm just mostly talking about residential here. But residential realtors, there's pretty much two. They do both, but really, if you looked at their sales history, you'd kind of see them divided into two. You have buyer's agents and you have listing agents. And the buyer agents are the ones that work with the buyers, and the listing agents are the ones that work with the sellers. Now, this is key here because it's so counterintuitive to what you would think. It's obvious that if you want people who are buying their house, then you have to talk to the buyer agents, right? Well, here's the thing about the buyer agents. The buyer agents are typically newer realtors. The seller agents, the listing agents, they're the older realtors, the more established ones, right? Why? How does that happen? Well, in the early days of being a realtor, while you're building your book of business, you have to hustle. You have to go out and find people, and you have to work referrals, and then you find the buyer, and then you take them to 20 different houses, and none of them are right, and they're not. It's a lot of work to be a buyer's agent. It's a lot of work. As a listing agent, typically what's happening is people are calling your office or coming directly to you because maybe you sold them that house to begin with. And so listing agents rely on a lot of repeat customers, actually. And the listing process is really easy because you don't have to bring that customer to 100 different houses. The buyer agent does that, right? And so it's a little more paperwork as a listing agent, but it's less work. And so as in the real estate world, as you build your book of business, you just naturally end up getting more listings. And so when you're networking, you might think, oh, I got this great listing, I've got this great experienced realtor connection, and she's sells more houses than any realtor in the state of Connecticut, and what you're actually getting is somebody who can refer you, but they're going to refer you to a lot of sellers. Whereas the newer agents, they are new, okay? They're new, and so they're not going to have as much volume, but they might end up having more of your ideal clients. And so the work that you do to target them and build these realtor connections as a field marketer, you actually have to end up spreading your net a little broader with those selling or with the buyer agents, if this is who you want, right? So so that's targeting this way. Now, of course, you have people who are not moving, who are going to paint. That's true. But that's basically it, right? It's like you have people who are buying and selling a house, and then you have people who live there but just haven't painted in a while. And to target the people who haven't painted in a while, that's the work that you do to knock on every single door in a neighborhood and a zip code that you want. Now, if you want to focus on these moving people, all you have to do is go to Zillow and filter the results for houses that have recently been sold and go knock on those doors because the address is right there. So just make a list, go start knocking on those doors, right? So how do you position yourself, right? So if you're going to position yourself as more of an aspirational brand versus a utility brand, then this means that the whole process, like everything that you do, has to be just elevated a little bit. It has to look nicer. You can't use the goofy characters and the cheap logo design. Don't use Fiverr for your logo design. Don't use AI for your logo design. Work with an actual company that can brand you professionally. Elevate the look and the feel of your company. Now, this is a little tricky when you're field marketing because actually, as a field marketer, again, here's another kind of counterintuitive thing. If you go out and you knock on doors and you look too slick and too polished and you're, too fast talking and, just wheeling and dealing kind of guy, that's actually going to turn people off. People want somebody a little bit more authentic, right? And authenticity is really, really important. And so while brand is really important, but you're going to actually have to work on your personal brand and downplay your company brand a little bit as a field marketer. Okay, if I'm leading a crew and having the crew show up and everything, I want the vans, I want the vans decorated, I want the yard sign out front, I want the shirts, I want it all, and the hats and everything. But when you're going out as a field marketer, you want to understate it just a little bit. Okay, you want to be a little bit more normal. You want to look a little bit more local. You don't want to look like a franchise, actually. And not only that, because of the dark side of this, the rejection, the anger that people have, the complaints. If you're if you're a walking billboard down the sidewalk, you might get people who are just having a bad day and they go on and leave a bad review about your company because they saw you, they didn't like you. Now they want to take it out on you. But I would recommend just probably showing up like this, just like a plain hat, kind of a craftsman-like shirt, and then I would say actually just wear clean white pants. I mean, I know if you're a field marketer, you're not necessarily painting, but the white pants send a signal that like you're a painter, right? And so, or at least that you belong to a painting company. And so when you go out there and you're positioning yourself, this is kind of where we want to get into, the personality that you bring to the table and the authenticity and your personality and who you are. And there are kind of two ways to present yourself out in the field. And to me, that depends on like, what are you, like, what's your position? How old are you? Like, if you're a real young guy, there's only so much you can get away with. You can either present yourself as a guide or a resource. So a guide, if we think about movies, right? For example, what's a good movie? If you think about the movie, I gotta think of it like a current movie. If you think of the movie, Wreck-It Ralph, that's a really great movie. I think a lot of people know Wreck-It Ralph. So if you look at the movie Wreck-It Ralph, right? You have the main character who's Ralph, and then you have this additional character, Penny, and she is acting as the guide, okay? And so the guide is the one that shows you the ropes, that shows you how to get through stuff, right? Now, the thing about Wreck-It Ralph is that instead of being kind of this older sage type character, this person that, has all the wisdom, more like Gandalf or Yoda or Obi-Wan Kenobi. Well, she's got kind of her own, story going on. And so as a guide, she really actually kind of crosses over into this resource character where she's a resource to Ralph, right? She knows the ropes, she knows the things, and she helps Ralph kind of, win the day, do the things that he needed to do, right? And so you have to kind of figure out which one are you like. And if you're a little bit younger, I think you have to kind of be a resource, more of a resource, because somebody older is probably not going to automatically just kind of think of you as this sage wisdom guy, but if you're a little bit older, then you step into this kind of guide role. And what you want to do is you want to present yourself as that resource, not as a salesperson. You don't want to be overly pushy or intense, right? You want to be a resource, and resources are really important to communities. Why? Well, that's what communities are all about. That's what society is about. Society is built on people coming together and sharing resources, shared resources, right? So if I'm able to share my resources with other people, then I'm bringing value to the community, right? Your neighbors might want to be resources to the community, and so they might share the name of a great painter that they have, right? Anywhere you go, you're gonna it's about how you show value to your community. Because if you don't show value within the community, then what happens? You get kicked out, right? People don't want you. And so knocking on somebody's door can really have that feeling of, what are you doing? You're trying to take my resources. You're not trying to give, right? And that's a thing that a lot of salespeople just don't understand, is that they're taking, they're just take, like buy. I want your money. I want your money. I want your money, right? That's taking. Resources, on the other hand, are much better about highlighting what they are actually giving and providing to the community. And so we want to have this mindset. We want to have this resource mindset that we are a resource, right? And a resource, we use our resources in two ways. Well, we use our resources when we need them, right? And sometimes there's an emergency, right? And you need your resource right now. But sometimes it's not an emergency, and so you put your resource in a store, right? You put your resource in a store somewhere to wait until the day that you do need it. And the hard part about the door-to-door marketing is that you're going to find people who need it today, and you're going to find people who don't need it today. This is part of why, the reason that I target movers. Because those movers, they are in an emergency. They're about to move. They need it now. We have to paint. We're moving in. I hate these stupid, ugly colors. We need to paint. We need it now, right? But when you're just doing regular D2D, what you're going to find is that there are a lot of people who they don't need it now, but they would be willing to store your information for later, right? When they do need it. And at that point, it's a little bit of a numbers game. How many people can we get to put us in their store of resources? Also, how many of these people can we get to give us their information, right? We'll get to that later. So what tools do you need? What tools do you need, right? When you're a guide or a resource? Well, if you're going door to door, then I recommend just, using a nice little clipboard and pen. Just get a notepad, you know, like a line. You can use a lined piece of paper and just write name, telephone number, email, right? You have their address because you're right there. So just get their, you know, name, telephone number, right? Right. You can write their address down, write that down. And as you're going around, you want to have a conversation and just let people know that you're a resource in the area. Knock on the door, and you know, you want to use little social proof. So name dropping helps with social proof. And you say, hey, we were just painting down the road at the Allen's house, and I wanted to let everybody know in the neighborhood that we're a local painting company. I'm just building awareness for our brand and taking names of people who might want painting later down the line. And you just wait, see if they want it, right? And they might say no, and that's fine, right? That's where we begin, right? Just with a clipboard. Now, another thing that you can have is I like to have a good card and a good digital, like a good digital business card. Door flyers are okay. You know, flyers are okay. I don't know. I use them, but honestly, a card, you know, it's fine. Card is professional. Remember, the idea is that we want them to put our resource, we want them to store it, right? So this is why I kind of actually switched from door hangers to business cards, just business cards, just this simple business card with our logo on it, and on the other side is a QR code, right? Because what I want people to do is I want them to store our information because I want to be a resource, right? And so people hang on to business cards, you know, for later. They keep them for later. I don't know about you. I throw away yard sign or door hangers. I just throw those away. These, you can fit them right in the weather stripping, you know, on the door. Looks really nice, you know, like this. The QR code, this QR code, in fact, goes straight to a digital profile. And so this is one of the, I don't know, one of the most important tools that I've ever created, actually, for myself. They're that's not the eraser that I want. They're surprisingly useful. They're a very simple idea, and they're certainly gaining in popularity. So for all of our collective members, you do get one of these. You get these digital profiles, and the digital profile is like a personal business card that has all of the links that anybody could need to get the information that they want from you and out of you. Okay, so if they are more comfortable with calling you, if they are more comfortable with texting or with emailing, if they would rather just check you out on Instagram and maybe follow you for a while before they really jump in, if they want to be able to just add you to their contacts and throw your card away, right? That's what this does, right? The digital profile has those things. So it says, you know, it has your name, it has an add to contacts button so that they can add you to their contacts, store your information, right? Because if you're going to be a resource, they have to store your resource until an emergency. And maybe they don't want to hang on to this forever. Some do. Some like, you know, old school Rolodex. That's fine. But then you also have to have, you know, your telephone number, a way to text with you, a way to send, you know, emails. They might want to see your Instagram, right? Those are the kind of things. Maybe you know, a little about section about you, right? Those are the elements that you need. Of course, you need a profile picture. Okay. So if your digital profile can do that and show people, you know, instantly who you are, who you work for, they can add you to their contacts, they can text you, they can call you, they can email you, they can check out your Instagram, they can read a little bit about you. Now you've become a resource, and that's why I use this tool. Now, the nice thing about it being a digital tool is that even if you run out of cards, you run out of the QR code cards, there are ways to share this digital profile so easy. One of them is this little wristband. This, you say, hey, you got a phone? Here you go. Just tap on that wristband, and here you go, right? Another way you could do it is you can, like on ours, we actually have these little buttons that link to a QR code. And so you click on the button, it opens up a QR code for your phone, and then all they have to do is just scan your phone, right? And then it pops up on their phone, and you show them how to add them to contacts. Another thing that you can do is you can say, yeah, let me share my information with you. And actually, this is a great way to just get that information, to start getting their information because you want their information. You say, yeah, let me share my information. Let me text you a link. What's your phone number? And then you just wait, and then you text them, right? That's a great way to do things. You want to share that digital profile. We'll come back to that strategy of getting somebody's phone number. So that's a tool. So we've got the clipboard, we've got the digital profile. Then we want to have a good landing page. Okay, and the landing page is separate from our main company homepage. The landing page is very specific to the zip code that you're in. You might even make it specific to the person who's selling, because that way you can track where that lead is coming from, right? You can track where that lead is coming from. And so the landing page is going to look pretty similar to a standard website, but it's going to have some information on there that will help the person to learn a little bit more about your company, right? And so this is in the case that they're actually interested, right? Like let's say that you knock on somebody's door and it's like, oh, actually, I was thinking about painting, right? And again, this is why I target those movers, because if I create a list of addresses of houses that have just been sold, and sometimes you have to wait a couple weeks because it takes them a minute to move in. But you knock on that door and you say, hey, heard you're new to the area. My name is Torlando. I'm a local, painting company. I belong to a local painting company. And I just wanted to introduce myself as a resource to you as you're getting settled. Maybe you moved in, maybe you'd like to change some things up. I just want to be a resource to you, right? Well, let's just say that they're like, oh man, we were just talking about paint colors last night. We would love to get a quote. Can you tell us a little bit more about your services? You pull up this landing page, and it's their zip code. So you put the zip code on the page, right? And then you say, okay, so yeah, we serve in this area. We're a local company serving this area. And these are some of our reviews and pictures. Go straight to the reviews and the pictures, straight to them. Nobody cares about anything else, really. They don't. They just want to, they see with their eyes, right? So just show them pictures of the work that your company does and the reviews, and just go right into it. Because here's the thing about the reviews is you don't have to have a tremendous amount of like smart copywriting on your website. You don't have to have a tremendous amount of like smart sales copy and stuff like that. Your reviews are what they talk about your value proposition. Like the customers write about what they valued about the experience. So your value proposition is in the reviews themselves. And so, all you're going to do is you're going to start highlighting the reviews. Yeah, here's a customer. They actually live right down the road here, and they said that we were fantastic, that we were timely, clean, meticulous. This customer, Dave, he was like, oh, we became best friends. So, like they just read the reviews. Just read the reviews, And then it's like, okay, well, they're they got a lot of nice reviews, and that was a nice young man. So, you share that landing page, and like I said, you show the reviews, right? And just make sure that they're, really good reviews, and then show a picture of like the house, that was painted, right? You show those things right off the bat, and they're going to be like, okay, okay, right? Because again, social proof, very important in the sales process. So once they have enough social proof to know that you are reputable, and they want a little bit of, they want the action, well, you have to have a really nice offer, right? And again, it comes down to that timing, right? Because if they're in a rush, then it's going to be easier. But if they're not in a rush, then how do you get them to, you know, get into the funnel, basically, right? And so that's a tough one, right? Well, what you might say is like, well, that's fine. While you're considering, the painting, what we could do is I would love to send you a link to our blog, and our blog has a lot of color inspiration. Can I send you that link? Right? And so, that's where another place where where should I send that to? Do you have an email address that I can send that to, or do you have a phone that I can text you the link, right? We just want that information, right? So you get their name, and then yeah, you send them a link to the blog with all the color, with all the color inspiration on it. So that's if it's like super successful, right? Now, if you walk up and they're just like, no, I'm not interested, there's one of two ways you can go about it. For one, you can say, all right, and go, because there's plenty of fish in the sea. There's a lot of, people out there. But the thing is that we want to also create a little bit of affinity. And so what we want to do is, again, we want to go back to that. Um, we want to go back to that brand affinity. We want to create some positive vibes for our brand. And so what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to try to open up a story loop. And a story loop is where we get the person who we're talking to get into a story that they're going to start telling, right? We want to provoke them to start talking and to start sharing. Because our goal at this point, if they're not ready, they're not ready, okay? I mean, could a flash sale convince them? Maybe. Probably not, though, right? If they're not ready, they're just not ready. But what we want, again, is to become a resource in their store, okay? And so if they're going to choose us as a resource, rather than them just saying no immediately and not remembering us, never thinking about us again, we want to open up a story loop. And a story loop is a question that gets them to tell us a meaningful story to us, right? And so, you'd be surprised. You'd be surprised what people will do once they step into a story loop. I remember one time I was going door to door in Louisville. I go up to this house. The house was painted black. They had one of those big skeletons, which had just like came out. It was probably the first big skeleton I'd seen. And I'm knocking on the door, and it looks like nobody's there. And then the guy comes around, and he's like, "Can I help you?" And I said, "This is a big skeleton." And he's like, "Yeah." And I said, "It matches your black house. Like, you went all out for Halloween. Like, you really did. You painted your whole house for Halloween." And he laughed. And I said, I bet your house looks really nice on the inside." that was the story loop, right? That was a story loop. Because what happened is because I was gracious in in offering that kind of you know, approbation, he ended up saying, "You want to come for you want to take a tour? You want to see it inside?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I do." And so we go in, and that thing is like decked out like MTV Cribs. And while I was in there, you know, I was able to talk to him, ask him questions about what he does. He had like several Airbnbs, and I was like, "Do you have them all painted?" And he was like, "Yeah, but like I have to maintain them a lot." And I was like, "Well, I would love to be a resource," right? And as we were walking through the house, I started to notice things about his house that were issues. And I said, you know, like I said, as a resource, you know, when you have stuff like this ceiling stain right here that comes from a leak, that's the kind of stuff that we can fix, right? And so I start finding those problems and agitating those problems while he's in his story loop, because he is starting to share a story about his house. Well, every story has ups and downs, it has problems. And so all I'm doing is inserting some of these problems that I'm seeing and offering myself as a resource. There's another time I knocked on a door. This guy, I tell you what, he was looking mean as can be. I mean, he was big. He was like a bodybuilder. I mean, he was really scary. And he was older too. And so like an old bodybuilder, that, you know, it's like the bodybuilder strength plus the grown man strength. It was scary. But he comes up, and the smallest little dog walks out. And I'm telling you, this little tiny thing. And I go, "Is that your dog? Is that your guard dog?" And he, you know, he was looking mean. And then when I said that, he laughed, you know, he laughed and he broke. And I said, "Tell me about your dog." Story loop, right? Got him talking, right? In that same time, yeah, maybe it's a different time, but I'm going around. One that I ask a lot is, you know, "How long have you lived in your home?" And if they have lived here, you know, lived there for a long time, I may say, tell me the story about this home. How did you find this neighborhood? You know, what were you doing at that time in your life, right? Story loop. Get them in the story loop, get them talking, and try to position yourself as a resource. If you can get into the house, great. If not, don't push it. But just remember to just that the goal here is to become the resource, right? Build enough affinity in that moment, in that interaction, to where you can become the resource. Um, to build that relationship, you got to focus on trying to build trust, right? Trying to sell somebody to take their money, that doesn't build trust, right? Getting to know them, complimenting their surroundings, you know, asking them questions about their life, not being too obtrusive, but asking them questions, that builds trust. Listen, let people talk. Don't, you know, don't be impatient. You know, yeah, it's a numbers game. Yeah, you want to get down the road, but remember, once you get somebody into a story loop, um, you want to make them feel good, and you want to make them, you know, remember that conversation. You want them to go inside and say, I had just such a pleasant conversation with that young man. I'm going to hang on to his card. Right? That's what you want to have happen. And so you listen, you know, mirror back what they're saying. You know, one of the best things that you could do is say, "Hey," like let's say that they you know, give you an answer, and it's kind of like, "Where do I go with that?" Just repeat the last three words of what they said to get them to say more, right? And to keep that conversation going. So active listening goes a really long way, because again, we just want them to build a natural affinity for who we are, so that they will consider us as a resource. I mentioned, finding the problem. The more that you listen, the more that you listen actively, the more likely you are to be able to hear and identify that problem. So as I said, let's take the guy with the skeleton house. He starts walking me around. I'm asking what he does. He's like, I got so many Airbnbs, and we got maintenance issues, that happen all the time. And I'm like that one right there, because we can fix that. You know what I mean? So like I'm looking for that problem. And so once you have that problem though, you have to make sure that you can convert it into an offer. So because and you have to see like how urgent is that problem. If the problem's urgent, then they're going to ask you to offer something, right? But if the problem isn't that urgent, then we have to figure out what that offer is going to be. And here's where I think it's really important to kind of expand your time horizon. Everything doesn't have to be so urgent. You could do things to make things a little urgent, but patience goes a long way. Playing the long game goes a long way. Not being desperate goes a long way, because when you try to increase the amount of urgency, people feel that and they start to feel pressured, and then they just kind of retreat, right? And so don't be desperate. All right, like just don't be desperate. Like what I say is like if you act like a beggar, people are gonna pay you like a beggar, right? If you act like a beggar, and there are some people who don't even, they just walk past you, right? So if you act like a beggar, people will pay you like a beggar. So don't be a beggar, right? Instead, expand your horizon, have a little faith that things are going to work out, and talk to these people like they're human beings. So you have the let me list out some of these things so that you can just see them. So I said build trust, right? Well, really, it's just like ask. You got to ask, right? That's what opens up the store loop. Asking things, right? Being curious. Then you build trust. Trust comes from empathy and listening. Just be an empathetic person. Actually listen to what they're saying. Active listening. Find the problem, right? The problem specifically that you can solve. And then we make that offer. Now, great salespeople have this blend of knowing when to push and knowing when to pull back. You know, I think people who are good at dating are good at the same thing. They know when to be forward, but they know when to not try too hard. You know what I mean? And so with this, you really have to kind of have two types of offers. One is a direct offer. Okay, spelling's hard. What on earth? I didn't spell that right at all. It just started coming out wrong. I don't even need the word offer. It's under here. All right, so you're going to have direct and transitional. Okay, so the direct offer is when you have identified the problem and you ask them, would you like me to help you with this problem? Right? And that kind of reminds me, I had a customer who was a really great salesperson. He was a business owner, but he had great salesmanship. And I asked him for advice, and he said the two most important questions that you can arrive at the end of the sales process are, do you think I can help you? And do you want me to help you? Right? So what that means is that when you find that problem, what you also have to do is you have to like demonstrate your expertise on it. Now, what's super annoying with like door-to-door salespeople, I see these folks knock on my door and they like jump to this before they've done like any of this stuff. Like they knock on the door and they're like, "Hey, I see you have bugs. You know, bugs are caused by this, and if you don't do that," then they just jump into demonstrating expertise like right away. And I'm like, "Bro, stop. You know, just I'm okay with the bugs. You know, you have bugs on. Like bugs live outside. They get on your house sometimes. So like they're not doing this stuff first before they get to here. But once you get to this point of finding a problem, you do want to demonstrate your expertise, you know. So let me go back to that example, right? The skeleton house. You, are you talking about? Yeah, that's right. So I say, oh yeah, we have maintenance issues. Yeah, maintenance. Are these kind of common maintenance issues with like the discoloration and things like that? Yeah, yeah, that's been there for a while. Have you tried to fix it before? I'm still curious. I'm still asking questions. Well, what have you done in the past? Because it looks like it came back. And he might tell me, and I say, oh, okay. Now, what we would do is we would actually get a stain blocking primer, and we'd spot prime that area, and then we'd paint over that. Now, if you had, you know, and then I keep going, right? So it's just you just want to don't just don't be a beggar, man. Just don't jump into it. Just be cool, you know, be authentic. So okay, so now we're like, make the offer. We got a direct and transitional offer, right? So I've identified this leak, and I've said, okay, do you think I can help you? You know, based off of what I've said, do you think I can help you solve this leak? Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, do you want me to? Is this something that you'd like to schedule? Yeah, let me talk about it with my wife, you know. All right. I understand that. Here's what I want to do. I can put together a quote, and then we can take a look at it together. And then I pull out my phone. I pull out my calendar. When would be a good time to have a video chat with you and your spouse about this? Get it on the calendar, right? That's the direct. And you do that approach when you're like 80% sure that they're going to go for it. If they're not going to go for it, then you know again we want to become in their store, because the direct is when there's an emergency, but transitional is when we want to go in their store. Okay, so how do we get into their store? Well, you have to make sure that you have things to give them, resources to give them, at the very least your card. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to send them information. Okay. Well, can I text you a link to this landing page, and maybe you can share that with your spouse? Can I text you a link to my personal profile so that we can get in touch? Or maybe I do this, you know, my wristband or the card. You know, I might or you know again, I might just have my clipboard and say, okay, let me do this. We're going to be in the area next week. You know, that's okay. That's okay. I might do this. Hey, let me do this. Let me send you a link to a blog of some cool colors that I think would go in your house. And and in a few months, when when you guys have kind of come up with a plan and set some money aside for the project, you can give us a call. You know, I'll send you the information. You want to get their information. That's the bottom line. You want to get their information because, you know, it's nice if they store your business card, but you can't trust whether or not that they're going to do it or not, right? You can't trust it. Another thing that you could do is you could go with the prize thing. And that's a little gimmicky, but it's not bad. You say, okay, well, what I'm doing right now is we're doing a giveaway. It's a $500 gift card to Sherwin-Williams. And so if you sign up, we're going to draw a winner in a couple months. You get $500 in paint. That would cover like most of your paint, whether you do it yourself or you have us do it. It doesn't matter to us, but this is the drawing. And so would you want to sign up? And you say okay. So you sign them up, and then you got their information. So you want to get that information. You want to get that email and that text because you want to get them into a nurture campaign. You want to send them those blogs, both color inspiration and project stories. Those are the two types of blogs that we create. And when you're a member of the Craftsman Painter Collective, you can share our color inspiration blogs, but you also get to create your own project stories. And so how that works is it's called a project story. How that works is we have a form, and it has some prompts, and you just answer the prompts, and it's based off of a recent project that you did. It'll ask what city it was in, what zip code it was in, a little bit about the project, what hurdles and challenges there were, how you overcame them, and then you can submit pictures, both before pictures of the project, during pictures of the project, and after pictures of the project. And so what we do with all of those pictures and the writing is we put it together, we write an article, we post it on our blog, and then we send you a Google Doc so that you can share it however you want to. If you have a blog, or you can share it via email, I recommend sharing it via email. You send that out to your customer list, and now you're nurturing that list with stuff that's interesting. Both the project stories and the color inspiration. Those are interesting stories that people don't unsubscribe from as frequently. You'll get people unsubscribing, but you won't get them unsubscribing as frequently. And you can create a nurture list just with your Gmail account. You can send a mail merge email blast through your Gmail account, up to 200 a day. And what you do is you create this nurture list through door knocking and through street contacting, and you send them the project stories. You send them the color inspiration, and you keep going back to this list because there are going to be people who have you in their store now, and when they're ready, when their project becomes urgent, they're going to give you a call. Okay, and so that's the style. That's how we're doing it. And if you work hard at it, then it'll pay off. Not only are you going to find people who are in a situation where they do have an emergency, especially those people who are movers. They're definitely doing stuff quickly. Okay, and I mean that's the people that I find that are ready to paint, like right now when I'm like knocking doors, street knocking. It's because they either just moved or getting ready to move. And so, but the long-term people, they're the ones that keep me in the store. But they're not going to remember me unless I get their information and I nurture the list. So really trying to nurture that list as much as possible. So that's what I would say that you do. You know, the beautiful thing about the gift card idea, you can just pick these up. Like this is not loaded. This doesn't have money on it at all. And so it doesn't have money until I put money on it. And so what I could do is I can go around and I can say, hey, this is a $500 gift card paint that we're giving away. There's going to be a drawing in a couple months. And if you sign up, then you'll be entered into the drawing, right? Well, you get those names, and some of them are gonna like say yes, and you're gonna paint, and maybe they can't wait for the drawing, whatever, or maybe I don't know, just keep it loose. Just we're gonna have a drawing in a couple weeks. Just say that. You don't have to have a definitive date. We're gonna have a drawing in a couple weeks. Well, you sell some jobs, and then you start setting aside a little bit of money from each job. The amount of money that you would spend on marketing typically, let's say 3%. So you take 3% of each job, When you get to $500 and you've got the $500 to put this on the card, then you say, hey, we're doing the drawing, and then you email them and say, hey, you won $500 in paint, right? That's not a bad idea. That's actually not bad at all. Okay, so that's the field marketer gig, and that was mostly just door-to-door action. I didn't talk about going to realtors' offices and scheduling lunch and learns and networking and doing office pop-ins. Those are all kind of things that you could do as a field marketer. Putting up posters around town, posters up on telephone poles and on bulletin boards, putting your card in coffee shops and on little tack boards and stuff like that. Those are all things that you could do. And here's what I'll say to kind of seal this up. I like digital marketing. Things in digital marketing change a lot. It change frequently. You need to have a presence online. You need to look polished, because when people search for you and they want to learn more information about you, they're going to do their research online. So make sure that all that stuff is tight. But getting out in the real world and using time and effort to market, I think that's the real secret to growing business. And here's why. It is time based. It doesn't necessarily cost you a lot of money. And that's a very good thing for the health of your business, because digital ad spend can very quickly and easily get out of control. And if it gets out of control, then you won't actually make any money. And I was talking to a company who does a lot of does a good amount of business, and they told me that they spent they told me how much they spend on digital marketing. It was about $25K. And when we started to kind of loosely piece together where their leads came from, we realized that maybe about 10% of their business was actually coming from their ad spend. And when that was the case and we did the math, we realized their ad spend took up a large chunk of the revenue of that job, to the degree that I had to question, are you even making money on those jobs that you won? And was it worth the extra headache? Could you have gotten away with not doing those jobs and just relied on the referral network and the time-based work that you put in? I'm not saying that to say don't invest into digital advertising. What I'm saying is look back into your numbers and figure out where your company customers are coming from. And you might be surprised by how much of those leads didn't cost you a dang thing. And if that's the case, then you might want to question, how much more effort could I put into this to get the same results, but just more often? And that mentality, understanding that about your marketing efforts, that really is the key to maximizing them. Because what we want to do as a business is we always want to increase the amount of production that we're doing at a decreased cost. And marketing expenses really can run rampant. And a lot of times we're just wasting money on marketing that doesn't work because we're lazy. So put in the time and make stuff happen. This concludes the Sprint Retro. I hope that you had a great 2 weeks. I look forward to hearing about it in the next 2 weeks. Till next time, I'm Torlando.